Hi guys, this is Lauren with Lauren Watkins Art, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Transon watercolor brushes. This is their copper handled line. They don't really have names to differentiate their brushes, so I'm just going to call them their copper handled line. But I purchased these from Amazon this past summer, and if you have been watching my watercolor videos, you've noticed that I've been using them in a lot of my videos as I've been testing them out. And just to clarify, I purchased these with my own money. This video isn't sponsored. This is completely my own opinion of these brushes. In this set, there are 8 round brushes ranging from size 0 to size 7. So there's a 0, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a 6 and a 7 size. So let me give you some information that I found out about these on their website. These are marketed as being good for acrylics, watercolor, gouache, and ink. I would probably only be using these for watercolor, inks, and maybe gouache, but that's a maybe on the gouache because I don't like paintbrushes that hold a ton of water when I'm using gouache, because if I'm using gouache, I want it to be more opaque. And so I would use a stiffer brush. Also, gouache can be really hard on your watercolor brushes because they're so soft, but that's just a personal preference. I've noticed sometimes brush companies market their brushes as good for almost everything, even though they're obviously not good for that unless you have a very specific style. Like, I probably wouldn't use these for acrylics either because they are such soft brushes. These brushes are also a mix of natural hair and synthetic fibers, similar to the velvet or the silver black velvet brushes that are really popular and also really expensive. These are very similar. They have a mix of goat hair and then a mix of nylon in them, and that makes them very, very absorbent, but they also keep their shape and have a nice spring to the brush. And I think that's why I've liked them so much, is they are a nice middle ground in shape and texture and density. So here is kind of my test of like all the sizes next to each other, and you can see I can get really wide broad strokes with their number 7 brush, but I can also get really fine detailed lines with their size 0. And I can vary it up and get some really nice effects with these brushes. Now, a thing that they mention on their website, and something that I noticed before I even looked it up on their website, is their sizing. Their brushes are very generously sized. So next to my size 7 brush is a silver black velvet brush in a size 8. So technically a size bigger than their number 7. And the number 7 is a lot bigger. It's closer to a size 12 or 15. The blue handled Mimic brush is a size 12, and you can see that the Transon was a lot bigger than that. But I wanted to do a little bit of a side-by-side comparison because the Mimic brushes and the silver black velvet brushes have previously been my favorite brushes. So I wanted to see how this brush compared. So the pink is the Mimic brushes, blue is the silver black velvet brush, and I tried to pick the closest size I had to the Transon number 7, because I wanted to see how wide I could get it and then how fine of details, because typically I will use the biggest brush I can get away with because I don't like redipping my brush very often. It's really important to me that my large brushes can do fine details whenever possible. And the Transon brush is very, very comparable to the Mimic brush and the silver black velvet brush. It has probably the closest texture to the Mimic brushes, the Mimic squirrel brushes in particular. So you can see there's the side-by-side comparisons. So the next thing I wanted to compare these brushes with is the Artist Loft brand natural hair brush from Michaels. And you might be wondering why I'm comparing that, and that's because I started looking for brushes for my watercolor classes, I was trying to find something that was affordable, that would be a good option for my students. And that led me to find the Transon brushes and the Artist Loft natural hair brushes. And they both have sets of 8 that are similarly priced. The Artist Loft brush set is like $1 or $2 less than the Transon brush from Amazon. And they both come with 8 brushes. So they're very similar in price point. But the size of brushes and the quality is very different. The Artist Loft brushes hold a lot of water for what you get, and previously had been my favorite brushes for that price point to recommend to beginners. But their barrel is a lot more wobbly. The brush itself is a lot more floppy. It doesn't come to as fine of a point, so it's a little bit harder to get details. And the reason why I focus so much on large brushes is because it's hard to find affordable large brushes, especially when you're trying to bulk order for a class. So let's go over pricing and compare these brushes to other brushes so that you get an idea of how good of a deal these are. So the Transon brushes on Amazon are $14.99 for the set of 8. This breaks down to just about $1.80 per brush. And that includes the bigger sizing with it, all of that. The silver black velvet brush in a size 12, just for that one brush, which is smaller than the size 7, is $21.26 on Jerry's Artorama. Okay. And that's the discounted price that Jerry's offers. That is a huge price difference. If you try to buy a set of 3 brushes that include the size 12, you're looking at spending $46.75 for a set of 3. And I literally could not tell a difference between these brushes. If you wanted to get the Mimic brushes, which is, I think, Jerry's Artorama's own brush brand, their size 12 brush, which is smaller than this one, is $11.24 just for that one brush. Now, Jerry's does have a set of 8, which is a really good set that I love, and it has some great brushes with it, is $34.95. So the Transon brushes are literally less than half the price. They are about $2 more than the Artist Loft ones, but they are way nicer quality, and they are bigger in size. They are more stable. Less hairs come out of the end of them. The barrel is nice and stable, so there's not any wobbling when you rush. The handles are nice and straight. I noticed some of my Artist Loft ones were like curved weird. So these are a great brush, and you can tell they're good, or at least that I like them, because I've used them in every watercolor video I've done since I've purchased them. Even though I have much more expensive brushes at my disposal to use as much as I want. I also love these because I can travel with these brushes, like when I'm going hiking or when I'm traveling to go teach a workshop or a class. And if something happened to these brushes, I wouldn't feel stressed. But when I have a $35 paintbrush, just one paintbrush that's $35, I get a little protective of it. And I don't want it to get ruined while traveling, so I don't take those brushes with me. So these brushes are my new recommendation for my students who are just beginning. These are the brushes that I put in their kits, and I really, really recommend them, and they can make a big difference in reducing frustration when you are starting in watercolor. If you are using bad paper and bad brushes, it doesn't matter how good of paint you purchase, you're going to be frustrated. And if your brushes aren't holding a point, if they're too floppy, or if they are too stiff and they pick up the paint underneath them too easily, and you constantly have to dip, your brush in and out of the palette to get paint on your paper, you're going to experience a lot of frustration. And so having a good brush, and if you take care of it, it will last you forever. My silver black velvet brushes and my mimic brushes are brushes that I've had for over 6 years. And I have used them constantly. I've used them for huge projects that are like 5 feet by 5 feet, and I've used them for hundreds of smaller ones, and they're in still just as good of condition as they are, especially once I learned not to use them with gouache. So for half the price of the other brushes, you're able to get a high quality brush that's going to last you a very long time, especially if you take care of it, where you rinse it off in the water, you dry it flat, you kind of comb the bristles back into shape while it dries, you don't let it soak in the water upside down. Just basic good brush care. These will last you a very long time. So what are some drawbacks with these brushes since I've been singing their praises for so long? Well, they're only really available on Amazon, so if you don't shop on Amazon, they're not a great brush for you. 2, if you're vegan, these aren't going to work for you because they have animal products in them from the goat hair in them. 3, they're only available in sets of 8. I couldn't find any sets with bigger sizes, and I couldn't find individual brushes. So you are kind of stuck with just this one set. So who would I recommend these brushes for? Well, 1, I recommend them for beginners who don't want to spend a lot of money investing in new supplies. These are great for kind of children and teenagers who want to take their art to the next level and are wanting nicer supplies, but don't want to invest money in really expensive ones. And anybody that wants some more brushes added to their collection. I don't mind having multiple size 8 brushes, but some people only want 1 or 2. So if you want to have some more brushes to choose from, or ones that you can travel with because they're inexpensive, then these might be the brushes for you. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you found it helpful, please hit the like button. If you have any questions about these brushes or watercolor in general, please leave them down below. And if you want to see more of what I create on this channel, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.